Hello and welcome to our EV meeting. Here you can see who's presenting tonight. It's a fairly long presentation or meetings, about 2 hours. So if you don't want to watch the whole thing or listen to it, just pick out what you want to look and listen to.
Also would like to thank Philhop Electric for hosting for providing the food tonight. Let's give both Nissan and Philhop. So we've got a lot of people supporting us. We have actually a visitor from Nugget tonight. Can you want to stand up and say hello? Who's the?
Jeremy.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Oh, by the way, Jeremy, we just thanked Philhop Electric for donating the pizzas tonight. We appreciate that. Just wanted to let you know that.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
If anybody else is interested in sponsoring snacks for us in the future, please contact Guy. It was while we're very excited to do this for you, it was very inexpensive. So if anybody else is interested.
She's saying that you all are cheap dates. All right, so we've got a...
For all of us in this room, you all are all cheap dates.
So we got a fairly full calendar agenda tonight. We did in the last minute family emergency stop the PG&E folks from joining us today. But they will be out next meeting and they'll do a pre-meeting session of an hour that will dive into a lot of the things going on at PG&E. So if you're able to come at 5 and see what's going on with their rates, with their EVSE sub-meter kind of program, they're also talking about rolling out 25,000 charging stations, as they're asking the CPUC for permission to do that. In fact, if you didn't hear that, PG&E is actually rolling out 25,000 stations.
So if we did it, we would roll out 25.
I'd go 20. Roseville is at now. We have heard it here first tonight. Roseville Electric. Thank you for coming. I didn't mean to embarrass you. Well, I did, but thank you anyway for coming. Roseville Electric is always a great place to work with. So we're going to jump in. I'm already getting behind, and George is going to beat me up again. Trivia. So we want to start this off. The winners can choose. This is one of the coolest things, and we don't have very many of them left. A key ring with a J plug on it. There might be a little battery in there. I don't know. And some other nice thing. I guess that's a solar powered something or other. We'll pull it out. And so the trivia question. The first question in the trivia is, who's not been to one of the SacEV meetings before? All right, George. All right, so you're entitled to come up and get the first meeting. You can always come up and get one of these. That's all right. And you can. I'll let you do it. You can do it at the end of the meeting if you want. So, whoa. Let's see. How do? I don't know exactly how to do it, so I'm gonna have to go over here. All right. The next question is, so let me get into the trivia. What percentage of, and I don't know, since they're not here, what percentage of new car sales in the PG&E territory were electric? Anybody that's not been to 2 of our meetings before, hazard a guess?
6%.
It's pretty darn close to 6%. Fortunately, I don't have the number, but I remember. It's embarrassing. They were going to be here. They had all the numbers, and they were going to stand up and give the answer, but I realized that we didn't change this up. But when will the fast charge on the I-80 corridor at Citrus Heights be turned on? Anybody know?
Soon. When hell freezes over?
That was the prior date, yes. And apparently it's chilling down. So, Laura.
23rd?
Yes.
Of March.
Of this month. So they're turning it on. They don't have the celebration planned yet. but they do want to set one up. How many units can a manufacturer sell where buyers still get the $250, $7,500 tax rebate?
250,000, isn't it?
Now this is for people. And you have the answer to this one.
I do.
And you said what? 200,000. Has he got it?
250,000.
250,000.
And the answer is 200,000 per manufacturer.
Right. Per manufacturer. All right. That okay. And how close is Nissan? And I.
Close. How many cars do they have on the road?
Yeah, that have already.
Well, this applies to California. Or the state. No, it applies to
Yeah, but that depends on how many manufacturers sells, how many cars they sell.
Yeah.
So there's a whole.
Does a lease count?
I can't.
Yeah, I mean that's. You want to toss the answer out for us? No.
Well, worldwide, you guys just from publicly.
Yeah.
Well, this is the U.S. Or no, California.
200,000.
Well, it's U.S.
US.
Oh, that's right, U.S. This is a U.S. one, right?
You got to go by US. We're gonna hit it, but. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
190.
Yeah. That wouldn't be my guess. We still have a little room.
Didn't they
right?
go over 250,000 U.S. wide right now for all EVs?
No. Oh, for all EVs.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
manufacturers.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was 250,000. Nissan's a big percentage of that, but I would imagine.
I think 60 is what I.
So
Is that-
that would
That'd be like 90,000.
That would mean 150.
That's 60%?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because California's did so.
No.
Yeah, I thought it was around
Well,
60,000.
I'm thinking everything. Yeah.
So about 60,000 is what I understand. Okay. All right. So George Perrin is our new vice president. Everybody give him a hand. Those who don't know George, where are you, George? There you are. Yeah. Those who don't know George, it'll be terrific working with him on this. He's been on the board before. Those of you who do know George, just sort of get over it. You know. And he's going to give an update on what happened to.
This is what happens when
Miss a meeting?
you actually are one of 3 people at a meeting and the other 2 are already quicker and say nothing. Okay, what we've tried to do is to develop a little bit more organized and formal structure for SacEV. We actually now have money, and we're now seeing a room full of people come to these kinds of events, so it behooves us to try to have a little more legitimate format. We're actually going to have meetings. The board meetings will be run on Robert's Rules of Order. In the past, they've been run on Guy Hall's Rules of Spontaneous Combustion. We're going to have a limited executive board. We have in the past basically put everybody on the board who happened to show up and have any interest. We're now going to have a structured board of essentially 5 officers and 4 at-large positions. There'll be 2-year terms, so that what we're really wanting, everybody here to have some interest and willingness to step up to be board members, and to recognize that you're really only going to be committed for a couple of years. And in a perfect world, perhaps in 6 years, there'll be so many EVs on the road that we won't need an EV organization. But that'll be because that next series of board staff are truly effective, charismatic, and doing a wonderful job propagandizing. We'll have outstanding committees. There'll be a number of specific committee and expertise areas that report to a given board member. There's going to be some technical advisory committee people, for example, Tom Dowling there, who has been on the board but has served admirably and with long-suffering years in the EV movement, will be a resource person, not a regular board attendee, although I'd love to see him regularly. We'll have 1 board position open for election in June. The elections will be in June for a 2-year term that starts in July. The board meetings are going to be monthly as they have been. Board meetings will be announced on the website and always be open. The board and the planning here is to have absolute transparency to the organization, and the only time that board meetings would not be open is if there was some sort of personnel, legal, or judicial issue that required a closed session. Becky?
I would, however, suggest if you do plan on coming to a board meeting, letting somebody know that's on the board so that we can prepare for additional people.
Yeah, because we sometimes have a smallish room. But, you know, we'd love to see more people involved. We absolutely would. These larger activity events will continue to be bi-monthly, and they'll be also in other alternative months. We'll try to have outside programs, but only as appropriate and as we find something that essentially a number of members might be interested in. Looking back on our calendar, we supported, meaning we took people and had show and tells at over 40 events. That was stretching us quite thin at times. We do have essentially a series of events coming up in April. Something like 4 or 5 that are coming up, and you see the dates there. Please see one of the board members that'll be around, hang around, make your availability known if you can help us with show and tell on any of those dates. Okay, we need a range of cars and a range of expertise, which everybody in this room has a degree of that wisdom and experience to help educate the lay public. It is, and those of you who have talked to people, you realize how naive and misinformed so many people are relative to the functionality of EVs. We do need event planning support for some of these events, so again, please see a board member and make your interest known. Some of these events really are a lot of fun, and they sometimes even give us food. Yay?
Yay, Roseville.
Yay, Roseville.
Yep. So again, this one I haven't been to, but I'm looking forward to the solar car race situation, because I keep seeing the TV shows and, you know, special event things with those special cars, and it just, those are tremendous applications of technology, and that's one of our May events. Regatta. Three of these things, please note. When one of our events is logoed with SMUD, that's a really high priority event because SMUD has been a continuing support source, as is Roseville, and where we have partnered with our utilities in the areas, we really want to do a good job of, you know, being present and being effective at any of those settings. And again, Guy and whoever, we have a program here that we've come up with. Those of you with Nissan Leaf owners, and this is something, what we're doing is, please, those of you with Nissan Leafs, we have a $10,000 grant from Nissan to promote EVs and specifically to promote the Nissan Leaf. If you will keep track of test drives that you give interested parties, or hell, they don't have to be interested, drag them in that damn car and take them out for a ride, okay? It's okay, get those names and keep a record. We're giving gift certificates for the most test drives for each SacEV member each month. So, you know, you can proselytize the faith and at the same time get rewarded for being a good EV citizen, evangelist, if you will. $50. Okay. Did I go through that fast enough?
You did. Very good. Very good.
Are we doing anything with Formula E?
What's that?
Formula E race circuit?
I haven't yet. You can step up. I'm going to hand this over directly to Randall. If you were here at last month's meeting, Randall had asked, how come we don't have a fast charge at the airport? We learned very quickly how we work, and he led up a team to start going after that. And it's got some information to report back to us. Here, let me. And forward, backward.
Well, hello. I have not guided these slides, and I have not seen them, so I'm seeing them for the first time as well. But I know the content very well. Up.
Keep going. It went backwards.
I'll get there. These slides were so good, we just had to. At any rate, I think this is, so I'm a frequent user of Sacramento Airport. I'm sure most of you are as well. Interesting, when we met with the airport staff, they were fully aware that the average income of an EV driver is $150,000, and I pointed out to them, that's a lot of people who are flying. The problem with those of you with the anything but a Tesla, so Tesla people, you can close your ears. If you live beyond a fairly close radius, since the airport is way on the other side of town in the boonies, it's a real challenge to get to the airport, let's say from Fair Oaks or certainly from Folsom, let alone if you're in the middle of summer, you've got 3 people and their luggage in the car and you're going to drop them off or pick them up. There's essentially no place to charge at the airport. They have some chargers inside the parking lots. They're basically always full. You can't count on them, and even if you find one, you're there for an hour or 2. So essentially, if you're driving you know, a sub 100-mile EV, the $1 billion Terminal B was a waste of money for us. And SMUD had money, drew up plans. They had some beautiful plans for a charger up there at the AM/PM gas station. At the last minute, BP corporate, and we're still trying to find who the responsible official was, pulled the plug on it. Unfortunately, there was no challenge, there was no pushback, so they got away with it. So what we're trying to do is make them accountable, visit that, and get the airport staff, the Board of Supervisors who owns the airport, committed to, one way or the other, get a fast charger out at the airport. Now what this is doing is, that blue line is a 22 road mile radius from the airport. And what we figured is with let's say a 2-year-old Leaf, 80% battery capacity, leaving about a 20% reserve, that's who can, you know, within that line is who can get to the airport and back. You can see that leaves a huge amount of the service area out. And it's really shameful for, again, a $1 billion terminal that we all paid for that we can't use. This is the next that we developed. The next ring out shows what you can get with 10 minutes of L2 charging. The larger ring shows 10 minutes of a fast charge. So it's very clear that if you have a fast charge at the airport, it's night and day in terms of the usability and the serviceability of the airport. And all of a sudden, basically the whole region can now become a user, as, you know, knowing that you can go to the airport, get 10 minutes of charging, drop off, pick people up, and come back. And essentially it means any one of us who have these cars now can be an airport user. So we're working it very hard. We had a meeting with the airport. We've told them that we're willing to go to bat against BP and, you know, track down the person who said no to it and try to use some political pressure against them, some publicity. We're meeting with one of the Board of Supervisors tomorrow to get them excited. One of the other things that we found that was interesting is the Board of Supervisors just approved a 135-room hotel at the airport, and we asked the airport staff, did you make any provisions for charging? They're going to take over 135 spaces of the parking garage. So we haven't heard an answer back from them. I think that is answering no. So that's, again, one of the things we're going to ask the supervisors to say, you know, the BP thing is one thing. There's really no reason, if they're going to spend all this money to build a 135-room hotel up there, we as EV drivers should be able to go to a conference out there and take our EVs or do that. So it's really, you know, for an airport that serves the state capitol, for those of us who go and pick up dignitaries back and forth, it's really a sad statement that we can't use an EV, that some legislative staffer can't go and pick up the legislator from the airport in an EV because there's no charging out there. So we're working on it very hard and hope in the next 2 months from now we'll have some better news to report.
One last comment. One of the things that you pointed out to them, they were sharing their plans of putting out more chargers in the long-term parking lot. And they were putting all these L2s out, level 2s out there. And Randall pointed out that they should look at doing a lot more level 1s.
Exactly.
Oh, for the long term.
Well,
they didn't understand the difference.
Yeah, they
Yeah, they're going to be there for
That makes a lot of sense.
And so they're very interested. They're actually in the economy parking lot, if you're familiar with it, the gravel area. They have a project next year that they're going to be paving that, and also going to be taking some of that and putting a big solar farm out there. So they actually have a project in design where, yes, I mean, what a great situation to have a solar farm and a parking lot with a bunch of L1s in there where you can park. So we might have got them early enough that that's doable in the next year or two. But again, this is something they weren't planning. I mean, this is kind of like, or what if they were planning? It's like, well, we can stick a few L2s in there, and well, that doesn't work. And Guy, to his credit, has twice now, I think, gone up and down the parking structure. See, when you have a Tesla and you have all this extra, you can do these little jaunts.
Don has as well.
I did that, and I did it in my RAV4 EV, which I couldn't get to the airport really great from way out in Folsom. So there is one. There's not very many of those guys around.
Yeah.
Apps can do it.
Well, one of the things we also pointed out to them is, there's, now as more and more people are talking about the 200-mile EVs, and there's some concern, well, if we spend the money to put a fast charge at the airport, and then in 5 years no one needs it. And our response has been, no, now that means someone in Chico that has a 200-mile EV can go back. And, it's ironic that right now, the airport just started $1 million ad campaign to reach to the kind of the outer circle of people to convince them to use the airport, and they have $1 million to do that, but they don't seem to have some money to put in some charging, or at least figure out how SMUD can put in some charging. So I think it's shameful that that here we are trying to be the symbol of everything good, and we can't use our airport.
Will this still be the SMUD project? Will still be available to?
Well, that's what we're hoping, because the plans are all done. It's just it's getting BP to change their mind.
Okay. They relate to this new project too.
One other thing that comes up with the hotel, if they could repurpose some level 2 for the hotel, where the level 2 might make some sense.
Yeah, I mean, they need to do something with the hotel. I mean, that's...
But, we should be in there looking to see where the hotel is and where the parking for the hotel is, because that might be a good place for the level 2.
Mm-hmm.
As new construction, I think the hotel has to put in charging infrastructure.
Yeah, wasn't there an assembly bill last year passed that mandates like 3% parking for new?
I don't know what the effective date of that is, though. And
or if it applies.
Yeah.
And another thing that may apply is that a lot of new construction, especially larger buildings, always go for LEED certification, and you get LEED points with charging infrastructure.
That didn't seem to. They didn't seem to need that for Terminal 2, though. So that's. Yeah. Any rate, the second part of charging, what we're working on is sort of the larger picture, and that is being able to leave the Sacramento region and get somewhere, which is the corridor area. The California Energy Commission has continual pots of money that they've been doing every year or two. They do a series of grants. The problem with these grants has been it's kind of the wild, wild west, and whoever grabs some money and says, well, I'll put a few chargers here and I'll put a few chargers there. So there's parts of Silicon Valley that have lots of chargers. The East Bay had no chargers. There's no rhyme or reason to how they were doing it. So some of us have complained enough, and they approach Guy to say, okay, what should we do? I mean, we have a new grant coming out. There's a lot of political pressure now for them to complete a corridor. And so they asked us for a recommendation. And so we've been having some spirited discussions the last couple of weeks. And what we have come up with is and again, I don't know if we've if you've ever talked about the West Coast Electric Highway in here, but essentially it was an agreement signed between British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and California to make the West Coast Electric Highway. Washington and Oregon and British Columbia did their part. California never did it, so it stops. Yes, we're a very green state, but we have tight pocketbooks. So at any rate, it stops at the border. There's been a lot of people pushing that, so I think there now is some will to actually do that.
We need to move on.
Okay, the biggest question here is where it should go, and what we're pushing for is to use Highway 99 instead of Highway 5. We truly believe that if our goal is to expand the population of EVs, the string of cities along Highway 99 are a very logical place where people can buy them if the charging infrastructure exists. There's no population along Highway 5. Very few people will get in their Leaf and drive to LA, even if there's every 30 miles chargers on it. So we think it's a great opportunity to introduce the Central Valley communities. I believe it's 5.7 million people live in the Central Valley. It's the worst air in the country. Most of those cities are environmental justice communities. We think there's some great partnering that we can do as the EV community with the environmental justice community, with other areas, to show that EVs are not just for wealthy people, but they're a viable transportation mode for everyone. But that needs public charging. Thanks.
Thank you.
If you have a question for Randall about this, or George, go ahead and the social afterwards will be around, and you can do one-on-ones with them.
What's happening, SacEV? Woo! SacEV in the house. Okay. Always happy to be here with you guys. Really love partnering with SacEV all the time. Every time I have, it's been a delight, whether it's a ride and drive or an interview or whatever. You guys are wonderful. So naturally, I'm asking for your help again. So,
introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you. Great point. That's an excellent point. I'm Amber Harris, and I'm a program director with Clean Start at SARTA, which is the Sacramento Regional Technology Alliance. And we are also helping to promote electric vehicles through different partnerships, and one with Sacramento EV. So last time we spoke, we had just finished up our first round of electric vehicle videos. We were so excited, and this time we're doing it again, but even better. So Guy and I approached SMUD, and they agreed to fund us for a second round of the videos to make them more exciting, more interesting, and as one viewer put it, less like North Korea where everybody's saying the same thing. So we're really looking forward to this. I just got done with shooting for 3.5 hours today for a 30-second video spot, but people are already excited. The director wants to submit it for a Telly Award already, and he hasn't even edited it yet. So that's how excited people are. Next week,
what are they being used for? How are these
okay, so these videos, there's two. One is the neighbor-to-neighbor video. These are your neighbors right here. And these are used to help promote electric vehicles to the consuming public. The second video is the dealership training video. This is being used to convince dealers to do a better job to sell EVs, since sometimes they're not that very good at it, you know. And there's a lot of interest from executives, even at the Chevy level or the GM level, to promote these and see if they work. And so we're in the process of getting them together. Next week, I have a 5-hour shoot. It's probably going to be Tuesday or Wednesday morning from 9 to 2. And guess what? I don't have an EV. So I need to borrow somebody's EV, and I'll swap you out for my Toyota Camry hybrid. Don't crash it, please. I won't crash your EV. It will be a good trade. It's going to be at 3801 Power Inn Road, which is where Howe turns into Power Inn near 14th and Power Inn, at the SARTA office, which whoever volunteers, we will give you detailed instructions because it's hard to locate. It's near the child courthouse right there.
Is that at Granite Park? Or? Yeah.
I don't know. Is it? Okay.
There's a dog park.
Yeah, okay, it's up from the dog park, yes. So it's right next to, it's in walking distance from that. But we would give you the gate code and you can come down the back. But basically we're hoping for an EV that's neither white nor black, because EVs of color shoot better on film. But we will take other ones if necessary.
No Tesla, no Teslas?
We don't want a Tesla, we want a more common EV.
Pedestrian?
Yes, a layperson EV. So any Leafs, Volts, Fits, whatever, Priuses, Prii, I really desperately need, I would like to have 2, quite honestly, and that means somebody's not going to have a share car unless they borrow the other car from the office. So, but essentially, we need them from 9 to 2, Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. I know it's short notice. I apologize. Yeah, come see me. A red one is good. Red is very good. So I will be your driver. I'm a safe driver. I have insurance.
I can hook you up.
I haven't been in an accident. All right.
Come by here and just pick it up.
We have a winner. Yes, in the morning. I can come pick it up here in the morning if you want. Great. Perfect. We have a, so come see me and we'll exchange emails and phone numbers.
And if a second car is available? If
there is a second car available, it's just nice because then we can see which one shoots better. So if you want, we can, well, I'll have one and we can figure out. Yeah, a Leaf is good. A Leaf would be great. So yes, if somebody has a non-Leaf that's a EV of color, like come contact me and email and we'll figure out some logistics. Silver is acceptable, yes. And your EV could be a star, okay, everybody? It could be a star. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Give Amber, I mean,
I'm Amber, you're right.
Thank you.
Is there a link to these videos on the SacEV website?
There is for the ones that we produced already, yes.
But there's going to be 4 new ones.
There'll be new ones.
And they're not done yet.
So Megan, is it okay if I stand here? Because otherwise a lot of those folks are getting blocked.
All right. Before we do, I want to point out that we have some specially designed, high-fashion shirts, SacEV shirts that you cannot buy at stores. You can't buy off the internet. You can't even buy off TV. They look like this. And Michelle, yeah, look. Doesn't that look good?
Looks better on her guy.
No. So, and I'm stunned at the price on this. Laura, where'd Laura go? Shoot, there. I don't know how you do it, but the price on this is just, I don't even think you can cover the ink for that price. She's done very well. They fell off a truck somewhere. I don't. But they're there, several different sizes. Talk to Laura back.
The sweatshirt.
No, that's a great deal.
Yeah, I mean.
$17 for the denim shirt.
$17 for a shirt like this.
All those events in April, we mentioned in your site.
Yeah, for all these events coming up, it'd be really cool if you were out there talking about your car with your SacEV shirt. All right. So talk to Laura, okay? And
just one quick reminder, if you don't like these styles, you can bring Laura your own shirt and she will embroider that for $20.
That's more than 17.
Maybe she has got a better price than that. I'm making up.
And one last thing before I hand it over again to Mark. We have a number of SacEV business type cards that talk about what SacEV is about and the web address. And we'd like you to take a little stack of those so that when you see a car somewhere, an EV somewhere, stick it in their windshield, in the door there. We're only getting about 5 to 10% of the buyers or even know about us, let alone being interested. They don't even know about us. So if you take a stack of those cards out with you, they'll be out by the pizza. So grab a piece of pizza, there's still more out there, and a stack of cards, and then just leave them in your car. So when you're out in the parking lot and you see one, go ahead and put it in. Now I'd like to introduce, most of you know Mark Williams, working with the California Air Resources Board. He's going to give us an update on what's going on with the CARB. And you want me to hold that and put it in your pocket? And I will. There we go.
As Guy said, I'm Mark Williams, and I'm actually a SacEV member and would normally be wearing the green shirt, but I have my other hat on today. I've been in the Zero Emission Vehicle Program at the Air Resources Board for 12 years, and so occasionally I like to come and update, and Guy had asked me to do so. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about our Zero Emission Vehicle Program. And the program in 2012, we had a very large shakeup as far as how the program worked. We adopted something called the Advanced Clean Cars program, which had 3 components. 2 of the components, which are grayed out, were greenhouse gas, and where it says air quality improvement, it was actually criteria air pollutants like oxides of nitrogen and carbon monoxide. But those 2 parts of our overarching Advanced Clean Cars program are for reducing pollutants from conventional internal combustion engine vehicles. And so the point of those 2 components of the program is to make those conventional internal combustion engine vehicles as clean as possible through continuously more stringent tailpipe emission standards. But then we have a 3rd component, and that's the Zero Emission Vehicle program. And the Zero Emission Vehicle program does not establish tailpipe emission standards, but instead is a technology forcing regulation. And I'll go ahead and tell you how it works. The regulation requires that large volume automobile manufacturers produce a certain percentage of their vehicles as either pure zero emission vehicles, which are at this time either battery electric or fuel cell electric vehicles, or they can substitute a portion of that requirement with what we call near zero emission vehicles, which at one time there were 3 categories: plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, conventional hybrids like a normal Prius, and clean gasoline vehicles. You may have seen Subarus. Subarus are notorious for having the PZEV placard on their car. Well, PZEV was essentially the cleanest internal combustion vehicle you could have. It was essentially a vehicle that had what we call super ultra low tailpipe emission standards, 0 evaporative emissions, and a 15-year, 150,000 mile emission system warranty. So that's what a clean gasoline vehicle is. If you add electric drivetrain components like an electric motor and regen braking, then it becomes a conventional hybrid. So those 2 components were part of the zero emission vehicle program, but they recently graduated. As a result of the 2012 Advanced Clean Cars program, clean gasoline vehicles and conventional hybrids no longer apply to requirements under the ZEV program. Instead, they apply to a manufacturer's requirements for criteria pollutants and greenhouse gases. To date, though, as a result of the ZEV program, we've gotten almost 4 million vehicles. 3/4 of those were conventional internal combustion engine vehicles, and another almost 600,000 conventional hybrids. But as of through the end of model year 2013, we'd had about 33,000 both of plug-in hybrids and battery electric vehicles. We're well over 100,000 in the state now for those 2 categories of vehicles.
Is that combined?
100,000 combined, correct. And again, I want to reemphasize that now that clean gasoline vehicles and conventional hybrids have graduated to the low emission vehicle program, that means that manufacturers, to comply with the ZEV program, have to produce more pure electric and near zero emission vehicles. So let me show you what we expect for the time period 2018 to 2025. As a result of the Advanced Clean Cars program and the changes that were made to the ZEV regulation in 2012, we established requirements for automakers. And under a likely compliance scenario, these are the numbers we expect automakers to sell into the state of California in that time period. You can see where you see ZEV, we all know ZEVs are pure zero. TZEV is our acronym for plug-in hybrid vehicles. And we expect a total of almost 80,000 in 2018, ramping up to 270,000 by the 2025 model year.
what's the difference again? ZEV and TZEV?
A TZEV is a transitional ZEV, which is a plug-in hybrid vehicle. It's not a pure ZEV. It has an internal combustion engine.
Does your TZEV regulation have a minimum battery size?
I do not know. It has a minimum, I believe it has a minimum all-electric range requirement.
Yeah.
So I think that's how it's, if you don't meet the minimum all-electric range, then you can't get TZEV credit. So I'd like to take a look at current activities and future activities related to ZEV. I have to take a step back and say, Guy said, can we talk about government activities in 2015? And I thought, okay, so there's 16 of us in our branch, but there are 1,000 of us working on everything from underarm deodorant to ocean-going vessels. It's like, how do I talk about what we're doing? And I can't. I can only talk about what I think is of greatest interest to you, which is items related to the ZEV program itself. I'm currently involved with a rulemaking that is working with what we call intermediate volume manufacturers as part of the 2012 rulemaking to get more manufacturers to produce zero and near zero emission vehicles. We reduced the sales volume requirement within the definition of large volume manufacturers. In the first column you can see those are large manufacturers. Those have always been large volume manufacturers. But beginning in 2018 model year, the middle column shows other vehicles that now, as we reduce the threshold from 60,000 vehicles a year to 20,000, those manufacturers also become large volume manufacturers, meaning that they too will have an obligation to sell zero and near zero emission vehicles. Now,
Total sales, Mark?
that's California sales.
California sales.
Yes. Now, in the third column, we have what's called intermediate volume manufacturers, and you see that Mazda and Subaru in the second column are also in red. We are addressing those 5 manufacturers in a rulemaking right now to try to provide them additional flexibility so that they can bring plug-in vehicles to market, but have flexibility in case they have problems. The issue with those manufacturers is that some of them, especially Mazda and Subaru, sell similar numbers of vehicles to, let's say, like BMW or others that are going to become large volume manufacturers in 2018. But their research budgets and their overall global revenue are about 1/10 of what those other automakers have. So what they can't do is they can't concurrently develop both a plug-in hybrid and a pure electric vehicle. So they essentially have to put all their eggs in one basket. And if you think about the Mitsubishi i-MiEV as an example, it's a car that just is not of interest to the typical American driver. And so they have a product, but it's not a product that's going to allow them to garner the credits that they need to meet our regulation. So we're building in some flexibility right now for those automakers, but they will be producing pure electric vehicles by the end of the time period that I mentioned earlier. We're also working on something called the midterm review. For those of you who don't know, the ZEV reg is a living being. It's been around since 1990, and every couple of years we have to go back into it to address changes in technology, or in some cases the fact that we've been sued. So to avoid lawsuits in particular, I think, and to make sure that we're comfortable with what we're asking for, we do strenuous technology reviews. And we're in the process of doing that right now. And these are some of the types of things that we're going to be looking at. And I won't talk about all of them, but I will mention that one of the things that we're getting a lot of push on from larger automakers is to allow electric VMT, or vehicle miles traveled, to be a metric for determining the amount of credit that a vehicle gets. And we're very concerned about that because while some folks who have a Volt, for example, drive more electric miles than someone like me with my Leaf, just because they have the comfort of having that internal combustion engine backup. That's not always the case, especially for fleet vehicles. Lots of times, because fleet vehicles get loaned out to government drivers and they don't have a place to plug it in, those vehicles never get plugged in. And so we are doing studies to look at how these vehicles are utilized in real world situations. Beyond the midterm review, there are other things that we do to support the regulation. In and of itself, just forcing a manufacturer to produce vehicles doesn't mean that consumers are going to buy them. Things that we can do to help consumers buy them are to provide financial and other incentives and provide infrastructure for charging. So I will discuss those. The one that most of you are probably aware of and participated in is the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project. And it's funded by two bills. AQIP is the one that's been funding it for 5-6 years, or since 2010. But the Low Carbon Transportation Initiative is the big one. These are funds that come from cap and trade. They constitute about 90% of all the funding that goes into this program. You can see we're looking at $111 million for the current fiscal year and $116 million for the next fiscal year. Since 2010, the California Center for Sustainable Energy, who's been administering the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, has issued approximately 90,000 rebates totaling about $190 million. But there are things that we need to do to get beyond that limited group. And Randall, I think, mentioned before, disadvantaged communities. We're looking at several pilot projects to try to expand these vehicles into other communities. One is the Public Fleets Pilot Project. This is, as you probably don't know or never thought about, if a consumer wants to buy a plug-in vehicle, they can get a $7,500 tax credit from the federal government, and then whatever the state rebate is. If a public fleet wants to get a vehicle, they don't qualify for the federal tax credit. So what this program is going to do is essentially, in addition to what incentive is provided by a Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, it will cover that $7,500 for public fleets, but only if they're in disadvantaged communities and only if it's an advanced technology vehicle. We're looking at doing a car sharing and mobility options pilot project, $2.5 million for this fiscal year, to establish zero or near zero emission car sharing fleets in disadvantaged communities. And we see that, one as getting people to and from shuttles or car sharing or public transportation, and assistance for paratransit. Okay, some of you may be familiar with what was called the Car Scrap program. We also call it EFMP, and the acronym skips me right now because I'm thinking about the 2 minutes I have left. But we're going to have what's called EFMP Plus Up, which means that somebody who's scrapping a car, if they're going to buy a clean car that qualifies, and a clean advanced technology car, then we will provide additional funding for that. And again, that's for disadvantaged communities. And finally, the financing assistance pilot project will develop improved financing options for lower income consumers, because one of the issues that lower income consumers have is that even though the life cycle cost of this vehicle may be cheaper than what they have, they may not have the credit to qualify for it. And we all know about the decals, both white and green. Green decals are capped, it actually should say 75,000, I believe. And as of February 26th, we issued just over 60,000. The number of PHEVs that are being incentivized by CVRP is averaging about 1,200 a month. So based on that burn rate, we would expect about 12 more months before we hit that 75,000 cap. It's farther out than I anticipated, but the number of PHEVs that have been selling has decreased with the short-term decrease we had in fuel costs. Yeah, we expect it'll start climbing again now that fuel costs are going back up. Okay, quickly, CEC is supporting plug-in vehicles with infrastructure. 44 million to date for chargers, about 47 million to date for to grow the hydrogen fueling infrastructure. And we're not the only ones doing this. There's a multi-state ZEV action plan. We're working with a bunch of states to guide coordination. And some of those things include working with dealers to make sure dealers have all the tools they need for education and support. And that's the regulation.
Before you take that off, you had a trivia question, I think, for the group.
Oh, I did, yeah. Whenever an automaker wants to sell a car in California, they have to certify it here. And I ran across a new certification just this past week for an automaker I'd never heard of. First time they've certified a car. It's what we call a neighborhood electric vehicle. And neighborhood electric vehicles are governed at 25 miles an hour. Anybody want to guess who the automaker is?
Google.
Yep, Google. So very interesting. We'll be very curious to see where they go next.
All right, thank you very much. Great. Okay, pretty much I believe wraps us up. Oh, here's another slide. But
yeah, those were extras that if I really wanted to bore you guys to death.
Thank you for everybody contributing to this. Before we wrap up, does anybody have any announcements or questions or things that you want to bring to the group? Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky Haupt, and I see there's quite a few new faces in the group today. If you have an opportunity, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
So would like what?
If anybody wanted to introduce themselves as new.
Oh yeah, we have some new members. In fact, if you wouldn't mind.
That's a lot of people.
Sam, just say who you are and whether you're interested in electric cars or even have an electric car.
I'm Heather Holt, and actually we just had a EVSE installed by Bill House. Oh, you did? Yes.
Yay!
Were they on time?
They were wonderful, and we just purchased a Leaf about a month and a half ago.
Hey! That was Heather, what?
Holt.
Heather Holt?
Yes.
And Matt.
So now test drive people.
Who gets to
get a $50 thing?
That's right. And who gets to drive the car then?
Mostly me.
All right. Okay. Any other new members?
I'm not a member, but I work with Nugget Markets, and I'm the sustainability director, and we're looking at how we can support the EV community. So this is helpful for me to be in here and listen to what's needed. Helps me make well,
fast chargers.
That's an easy answer, right? What kind of chargers? And so this is all helpful for me. Free chargers.
Oh, we actually are forming a group of people that can give advice to companies on, and we already have provided advice to companies on what they ought to provide for charging infrastructure. And we've also provided at several companies now, Hewlett-Packard, Kaiser, even for their employees, test drive events. So we can take it to you and help out. We'd like to work with you. And of course, as I remind you again, we had the refreshments were sponsored or provided by Hopt Electric, so I just want to make sure you heard that again. There's all kinds of ways people can contribute. Thanks again to Nissan. Just again, one thing they do of many throughout the year to help the adoption of EVs and SacEV to support that. So, any other announcements? People want to say something? All right. Oh, yes.
Thank you for the reorganization and keeping the meeting on time. I think it was really well laid out today. So it's a
Good.
nice improvement.
We now have another hour for a social, if you like. Talk to the speakers and such. Enjoy. And there's still pizza out there,
I
yes?
wanted to say an earlier slide said the next meeting was on May 12th.
It's the 13th is a Wednesday, I believe. I think
But
12th
it
is.
said May 12th.
So we'll fix that. I think 13th is the correct date. So on the 13th, just a reminder, it's always the second Wednesday of an odd number month.
Always the second Wednesday of an odd number.
That's right. And there'll be a pre-meeting. One more just before we go, everybody. Hold on just a second. Please, a pre-meeting next month of 1 hour if you're interested in PG&E plans and what they're doing with chargers. And please, if you're interested in working and promoting EVs, talk to one of the board members or one of the other members here. And we can tell you how things that you might like to do, how you can assist. So thank you very much.
Let me just say there is a definition. I don't know what it is.